Hey everyone, this is Jebro. We're talking about the Holosmith today very quickly. I just finished my stream and I wanted to get this build out to you very quickly as well. Very hopefully fast. And we won't be explaining everything, all the ins and outs about Holosmith, but this is what I've been playing. So I've been playing, basically, if you just want to know, here is the build, whole middle line of Holosmith, and pretty much the same as we've had for Alchemy and Inventions. May seem a bit boring not to go for explosives, but this is a safe build that we're all probably very much used to, and we're used to the other traits. And that's good, you know, take something that you know pretty well, and then adjust slightly, and, you know, that can help you to understand probably the core, because this is very safe. The damage is, you know, all coming from your Holosmith as well. And obviously you're going to have condition removal here with elixirs. You're going to have, you know, inventions as well. Some bits of this build are borrowed or taken from Chafe, who came in, has been in the stream, and he's been streaming a lot recently. Obviously he used to play for the Abjured and on NA, probably one of the main other engineer scrapper streamers that are kind of doing it actively in the moment, and now Holosmith, which is good to see him back and doing his stuff. But I've been playing a different build. I hadn't really watched him. Someone mentioned he used Surging Rune today, which is very useful with one of the utilities that we're going to be using, and also the rocket boots. So I've been playing with Elixir S in a different way, so I could use my Prime Light Beam, whereas he's probably been using that and a combination of trying to use the aura as well, which has been very useful for him, for our, you know, Revenant players that we've been seeing in the past as well, to make sure they can get their elites off as well in various situations and to survive because of the aura that is you are going to gain through it. So obviously using that is very useful. Shocking aura, lovely, beautiful. Also the stats as well, not bad at all. So what's the score? What's the score indeed? Sword Shield. Sword obviously pretty damn awesome. Different heat levels is going to give you different effects. So if you're below 50%, you get 2.5 seconds of quickness. Above 50% is 5.25, and then above 100% is 7.75 worth of quickness, which is awesome. You may be asking, what is 100% heat? What is Holosmith? And Holosmith gives you the Photon Forge tool belt skill, which replaces the elite. So please remember that when that happens, when you go into Photon Forge. If you cannot run tool supply crate, for example, or anything else, and get, you know, orbital strike or get the Moa, because you are going to be stuck in that Photon Forge F5 skill. So remember that you cannot do that. So for now, if I wanted to run that, you can see that will not change, and I will only get Elixir X. So that's one of the things about this line, which is very important. But you do gain 5 abilities. You gain also a bar, which is going to show you how much heat you are going to be building up as well. So you get 100. I've got 150 heat here, but standard without that GM trait that I selected, it's 100 heat, and 1 heat is equal to 1%. You can extend it by 50, but still the 100% marker. Now, when you say 100%, it should be 150, but when they talk about it, it's still 100% is there, and that's, I guess, an extra 50% in the way they're wording things in terms of Guild Wars 2. Sometimes not the best in their tooltip instruction, which I might point out a bit later, which I got a bit confused about earlier. But yeah, you know what I'm like, easily confused. But always awesome, and that's the important thing. But yeah, so when you go into Photon Forge, you gain access to various abilities. As you can see here, Light Strike is damage, is a ton of damage as well. When you use it, it gives you an extra 2% heat built per strike. So you've got Light Strike, Bright Slash, and Flesh Cutter are all going to give you about 6% heat, and then you've got the static build up of heat in the first place. Hollow Leap is going to give you swiftness, also leaves this nice little hexagonal kind of pad around, so you can, other allies can also gain quickness. Corona Burst is a nice ability, it gives you might, as well as I've added stability to that as well. I'm not going to go through the abilities too much, because again, I've done it already. 8 stack of burning, but the damage is really strong as well. And also pierces, so it goes through your targets. That's what pierce means. And then the 5th skill is a massive launch onto enemies as well, which is absolutely fucking awesome. I don't normally swear during things, but it is pretty good. If I go back into that, you'll be able to see exactly what it does. It's a great CC, and it's something you want to be definitely using as something to really help you bring down not only one opponent, but a couple, and cleave, and just own, basically. I mean, that's the best way I could describe without showing you gameplay. It's a fantastic ability. Anyway, we can go through the build very quickly, but like I said, Source Shield, Sigil of Exploitation, and also Sigil of Cleansing to still get you that Condi remove that you so badly need. Obviously, Exploitation is the deal 5% extra damage to targets below 50%, and that's really useful extra damage. Obviously, if you've got them quite low, and especially if you're in a fight where you're both quite low as well, that extra little bit of damage can really help you out. Rune of Surgeon, as I said about Chafe before, something he's trying out. I actually use more Scrapper because it gives you the extra toughness and it gives you a bit of extra power as well. But also because I'm using Sword Shield and because there's Dead Eyes, and I might not necessarily see them, especially because they can be in stealth if they're taking that middle trait, top trait in the middle line, I think it is. When they kneel, they actually stealth. I don't see them always, and sometimes the extra toughness is really useful, but obviously 5% extra damage reduction when you're in 600 range. So if I'm Sword Shield, I'm going to be quite close to people, taking damage on a point at the moment, especially with the amount of burst and Condi and everything else that's coming in. That damage reduction is nice. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to take that. Be interested to know which traits you take, which amulets and runes you take yourself. I wouldn't go for Marauder unless it was heavy Condi, because again, you know, there's Dead Eyes and everything else as well that has a lot of power. Other Holosmiths, toughness is still probably even more relevant now for Paladin. For Engineer, if you do take Forge, we were taking like mix of Menders and Paladins before, up to this, you know, up to the Path of Fire, but now probably Paladins is going to be the most popular, I would say. Traits wise, let's go quickly over this so we know what Photon Forge is, and basically survival is still something in our memory. We've got a lot of good base damage in the Holosmith abilities in Photon Forge, but yeah, if we go and have a look at the rest of the actual traits as well, Photon Forge reduces incoming damage but increases passive heat generation. Not bad. Damage decreases 15%, but here we are able to take away 3 conditions, which is fantastic. Remember this, in terms of the build we're going for, 100% is here, 50% is here. Or so it is when I'm playing anyway. So remember, 50% is that real golden area. 100% is the, you know, platinum amazing best area, but you always want to make sure you're at least over 50%, which is going to be here, which could be confusing because it should be here, I guess, but they don't increase that, they don't penalize you, so that's 100%, that's 150%, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does, because normally it is 2 bars, as I showed you before. 50, 100, 1 unit is 1%, makes it easier. In this we have 150. Anyway, so we're going for that to convert some of our conditions. So this is, we're in Photon Forge, and then when you deactivate it, which is here, you can see it says on there, conditions to boons over 50% heat, to conditions to boons over 100% heat. I didn't say 2 boons, so remember that is conversion of conditions. Good stuff. You want to be over the line. I could just use abilities, but I'm not gonna. So that's 50%, and you can see I change color. So there's a good indicator there of when you can do it. That's going to be 50%. Okay, so let's do it in this build specifically. I'm not going to talk about the traits I haven't picked up and tell you why, because this is a quick video. Heat therapy is awesome. Gain health per unit of heat lost. This trait does not function while cooling due to overheat. So basically what happens is I build heat up, which is what we're doing now. La 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 la. And okay, so I will be like, you know, I'm starting to lose a bit of HP. I come out of this. If I've got lower HP, I will start to regen it back every time I lose a unit, I will be healed. I'm out of combat at the moment, so it's going to be degenning a bit more. But let's just see if we can get into combat. So this is only, of course, this is 65 heal per 1 unit, which is technically 1%, I guess, if you want to call it that. Which is how they refer to it. They should just deal with numbers rather than percentages. I think that might be a lot easier. But you know, it's still early. Maybe they'll change some of the tool tips. They always have that kind of issue. There you go. Okay, let's try and let it kill us, or get us low anyway. You can't see the combat log at the moment, unfortunately. So let's go out of it, and you can see as soon as I start to lose heat, 325, 325, 325, and now 650. So you ask, and this was the question I was asking as well, why is it suddenly it goes from 350 to, you know, 600 plus? Now, let me just quickly kill this guy, because you know what's going to happen. There you go. You can see the amount of damage. I know what you're thinking. You're happy. You're joyful, because we've got an amazing spec now. And there's the bloody Revenant as well. So what it is that you don't just lose 1 unit per second. You lose, so what was it? It's 5 times 65. So basically you lose 5 units per second. And let's just do the math. And it was, sorry, what was the number again? I said 650, 325. So 5 times 65, which will bring up on a magic calculator, which you cannot see. I'm sorry about that. 5 times 65 equals 325. And that is the magic number of healing. So how many units do we lose per second, everyone? Yes, that's right. It is 5. So that is why it is that number, 325. Now, the reason we get 10 stacks as well is because, and you can't really see it in here, it's not very clear, is that cancel Photon Forge and begin cooling after a delay. So there is a delay of a certain amount of seconds, which you can see there, 3 seconds, where it doesn't actually lose heat. So you're not going to be regenerating health 3 seconds after you disengage it, which I'll show you again. After those 3 seconds, you'll gain the 5 stacks per second of heat therapy, which will remove 320, which will add 320 HP every second, and then it will go to 10 stacks. So if you see here, and it says cancel Photon Forge to begin cooling after a delay, cooling effectiveness increases over time, and it's not the best thing to... I think I have to be in combat. I cannot remember how exactly you can see it properly. But basically what happens is that you gain an extra 5 stacks because it cools down even more. So you'll be able to see the increase in the bar. So it cools initially and it gives you 5 stacks of heat therapy. Then after I think another 3 seconds or so, and it doesn't tell you an exact time, it just says it increases after a certain amount of time. That it increases in stacks. So let's pull out of this, and you can see the speed of this. It will increase. It will go up to 10 stacks. It's another 3 seconds. So I think it's after that 3 seconds after initially coming out of Photon Forge, it will give you that stack of 5, 320, and then of 25. Sorry, and then it will go up to 650. I think it was just confusing me a little bit earlier because it didn't say any numbers. But anyway, it's good. It's good healing. And that does scale with healing power. Not by much. I think I put it up to, what was it, 65. If you change it over to Menders, it goes up to 67 or something. Oh no, it goes up to 71. That was a different one. Maybe Sages or something. But yeah. You know, it's a bit extra, but it's not worth trading. It's not worth changing your amulet for, you know. Anyway, let's continue. Corona Burst grants stability on each attack and creates a barrier for each target struck. So what this is a Photon Forge ability. And it is your 3rd skill right here. Try and get back into the game. There we go. So here we go. I can get 5 pulses explosion. There you go. You can see the stability, which is going to add there, and you do get 325 barrier as well, depending on how many enemies you hit. Can I hit 2? I can, and I got that magical amount of barrier, and because I hit a second time, I was able to get even more. So in a way, let's have a look again. 1, and then boom. Nice, a pretty nice amount of barrier actually. Pretty bloody nice. Let's just quickly see that again, just in case you didn't know. Number of hits 2, initial hit, second hit. There you go. And that's the energy as well that's going to be giving you that extra barrier. And it's nice because it gives you stability. You can see my might stacks. Oh, so I normally pop this when I run into battle. I will normally pop this first, and it will give me that 2 stacks of stability, hopefully. Yeah, there you go. So that's the overall stacks of stability it shows in the build itself. It will give you a stack per hit, pretty much. That's pretty much what I've seen anyway. Per target. So, oh no, it's not stacks per target, is it? My bad. It's just it gives you that. Okay, good. But the barrier is per hit. Although it does say, can I bring it up, down, push back, pulled, Corona burst grants stability on each attack and creates a, there you go. So it's saying the maximum amount of stability that you can get, I do believe. That could be incorrect, but again, you know, I'm still learning this myself, but I don't think so. As you can see, like, kind of doing it on 2 targets, so there you go. It does say attack. But let's keep going. Laser's Edge. While Photon Forge is active and you are above the heat threshold, your outgoing damage is increased. I don't need to explain that. And then finally, oh, maybe we do. It's just 50% heat, which here is here. So let's charge it up, and you can see the trait will pop up. Again, you know, kind of further proves what I was saying earlier about the 50% being that bar. I bet you it doesn't now, does it? Yeah, it does. There you go. Phew. Your damage is increased as long as you're above the heat threshold. 50%, 100%, that line right there. Good. Awesome. Good stuff. We're happy. Joyful. Next, enhanced capacity storage is the next trait we have gone for. Increases maximum heat capacity while above the 100% heat. Periodically gain might, and some skills and traits gain additional heat tiers. I can't remember which skills they are exactly because there are a fair few, but if you can see, the sword 100% does, quickness at below 50% heat, as I said before, 50%, 100% as well. 100% is this bar. If you are always hovering behind hit bar around here, you are doing the most damage and the most condition removal, the most, you're basically getting the most from your build, and you want to be managing that a lot. It is difficult because you can be in the heat of battle, you'll be in Photon Forge, you're hammering away, you realise that you're using your knock, and you realise that you're using other abilities, and you're like, shit, this gives me 25%, I'm like bang over here, and then suddenly I've knocked everyone down and I can't use the damage I want to use. So necessarily, pretty much you want to use that ability where? Probably around here, or even before, because you don't maybe necessarily care about that damage, you care about the actual knock itself. So here I might use this, I might get up to 100% and boom, and start to whack out all my damage, because, you know, flipping hell. Just... So I can actually, you know, stay in Photon Forge, if anything, because, you know, those abilities aren't necessarily giving me a massive boost in damage, but I will be able to stay in Photon Forge, and that's a big burst to my damage indeed. Let's stick with that. There you go. But remember, while Photon Forge is active, you are above the heat threshold, your outgoing damage is increased. So you need to, that is a big damage boost, 15%. So you want to make sure that you're still in that, you've still got availability to that as well. When you come out of sword, come into sword as well, you want to make sure you're above that 100%, which is around here and above. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Again, this is the same with Spectrum Shield. This is an ability as well in our trait, in our utilities, which I'll talk about very shortly. So it gives you might, and you could see that it was up to 25 stacks and it was not going down. You do not need might stacking in this build, because unless you want to keep that might for a longer period of time, so that when you come out of it, you are able to keep those stacks ticking even longer, and it gives you a little bit of a safety area. But really, if you're managing your heat well, I don't think you really need that. People could disagree with me. Maybe you want to put it on a sigil instead of the 50%, below 50% extra 5% damage on that sigil. Fine, but I've not found any problems with it. I've always had the might there when I've needed it. Maybe extra, you know, maybe I've needed that extra kick to put me straight back up to like 25, and having a couple of might stacks there just in the back of my pocket would be cool. But I've also got elixirs to make sure that I'm able to get some might up as well, and I might use that to give me that extra couple of stacks just in case I want to just be fancy and have extra damage at that point in time. So that's in combat only, so that you can't stack that up. You can't just be in Photon Forge, get to 100% and just sit there. You have to be in combat as well. So just to remind you about that, otherwise it will run off as well. So that's the traits. Utilities wise, and shield obviously. Remember shield, I love shield so much, which is another reason why I'm playing it. It gives me an extra blast with my heal. Let's pop that down. When I destroy the turret, and also use my shield. Second activate is going to give me that other blast. Also static shield, if I chuck that through, is going to be fairly useful. Also static shield, remember if an enemy hits you, they will get stunned. So let's just quickly do that. If he's going to hit me, there you go. So good stuff. Really, really useful for CC. Also is going to help you escape. Fantastic ability. I really miss shield, and I'm so happy I can use it again. A lot of people are using rifle. That has CC, it has net, it has knockback, it has its own leap as well, and it has, you know, some fairly nice damage as well as ranged damage as well with rifle. So you can kite your opponents very, very well with that, and also get back and do some fair amount of damage with Photon Forge. So what else is running? So these are going to be really up to preference, I think, more than anything. Rocket Boots has been giving this charge, which is fantastic. Ammo charge is maximum of 2, which is cool. And then after how many seconds? Okay, so 2 seconds. Is it not saying here? Or am I just being blind? There we go. Maximum cast amount is going to be 2. And then 2-second cooldown there, and then it goes back onto cooldown. I'm being blind with the actual... Oh, maybe it's not even in here. What's the cooldown? Count recharge 20 seconds. There you go. Sorry, my bad. I'm reading it completely wrong. I also stream for 10 hours, and it's 11 PM at night on the Saturday. But basically, after 20 seconds, you gain an extra charge. If you use all your charges after 20 seconds, it will recharge. But the next ammo, charge of ammo to put in there. But obviously, it's not going to be 20 seconds because I waited an amount of time. So if I use this now, and you can see the white line that's going around the edge of the box, it's charging. So we're like, you know, I don't know how many seconds that is. Anyway, I can't remember if it goes up the top. But I will gain a second charge, which is fantastic. As it goes around the entire square, you can see, still going around. I have a second charge now. So if I use this one, that's 20 seconds from when I use it. The next charge is loading up, but 2 seconds until I can use the ability again. As long as I have another charge in there, and you can see, until the next charge, the 9 seconds there, and it will start to load up. So I hope that makes some sense. I did explain that during the patch notes. That is also on the channel. Might sound like a lot of information to take in, but maybe I will try and go through that in depthly in each individual thing. But it's the weekend. I want to try and get a build out for Sunday as well. Elixir S, again, this is another thing which is really up to you. Elixir gun I've been using as well. I did start using this on my first day. Again, hadn't seen anyone been playing, but I didn't use Surgeon Rune, and I thought, you know what, if I can stealth and I can use my Elite, which is very powerful, interrupt and knock, then I will use that. Because no one will be able to see me, and the wind up is so big, it's got massive cast time as well. So that's what I was using. Very good for escaping burst damage as well. Make sure you're not going to be overheating during this, because you know you can get Elixir S as well. You can proc it through your traits and everything else, and you can actually die if you're quite low HP, and you can't do anything about it because you can't heal. So you get the initial burst of damage to you, you proc Elixir S, and then it ticks down some extra damage. because you've come out and it's just dealing additional dots to you, and that kind of sucks. And you can die quite easily, so you need to make sure you don't overheat when you're in Photon Forge. Just let that overheat while we're doing stuff. Looks very cool. And then we're going for Spectrum Shield, where it says 30 seconds cooldown, heat threshold 50, but the ability is breaks stun effect and creates a holographic shell that reduces incoming damage. This skill recharges faster while above the heat threshold. The reason that they're saying that is because the 30 seconds is the maximum amount of cooldown. If you hit 50, which you just saw there, in this build specifically, it will go down to 15 seconds. It will be recharged. The recharge goes down. So it's important to note, whatever skills you take, that depending on the heat that you have in Photon Forge, the more damage or the less damage, or the more cooldown or less cooldown there will be available for that ability. So right now, as you can see, I'm over 100%. None of these abilities, other than through the trait, the adept, I believe, really you're going to be doing more damage or not, dependent on your actual heat, as far as I remember. As you can see there, we have, it's mainly through swords, through cooldowns and whatnot as well, other than through the trait, the way, you know, you get an extra 15% damage if your Photon Forge is activated above the threshold, which was 50%, so the 50 heat, which is right there, which we showed you before. And you can see heat therapy again, successful. If I had less than, you know, 100% HP, I'd slowly be getting 325 ticks, and then after another 3 seconds or so, I would get the 650 ticks of health as well. Now this is quite a good trait to take if you're interested. It's quite fun. You can get an extra amount of healing. I'll let you read through that and try it yourself. And photonic blasting module, actually, you do not lose heat when you come out of Photon Forge, as far as I remember. And you only get heat therapy, because obviously you're not losing heat, until you have completely overheated. And the reason is because you also do not take the initial heat damage, which is about 40% of your HP, because of taking this trait, because that gets expended as damage. So normally the burst damage, which affects you, doesn't affect you, and you just get a couple of ticks of damage because it's still trying to cool down. The initial burst, which is quite significant, is put onto your enemies. So this quite, hopefully we can see this. So now I get to 100% heat. Boom, there you go. That's the damage. And that is not appearing onto me. So while we get to, until it gets to there, it just does a few dots. And as you can see, as it goes down and it recharges, I'm able to get some HP back myself, because heat therapy is going to be activated at that time and cannot activate before, because you will not lose heat while you are out of Photon Forge through this trait only. So make sure that happens. So yeah, that's the only time you'll be able to gain heat therapy, when you are overheated. If you're thinking, why am I not getting heat therapy? You're either not using this trait, you're either using this trait and you haven't overheated, or you're using another trait and you have overheated, because you don't gain heat therapy. You don't gain heat therapy in the other two grabs. Don't grab heat therapy when you're out of Photon Forge and you haven't overheated, if you're using this trait, because your heat does not go down. Basically, if heat goes down, you can get heat therapy. If heat doesn't go down, you can't get heat therapy. Thing is, I'm going to shut up about that, because it's going to get too deep. It's really too late, apparently. Just shut up, Jebro. I'm doing this in one take. I don't care. This is what's happening right now. But you know what I'm trying to say, basically. You can read through the traits. You're not stupid. Maybe I am. Anyway, so this is a great ability. Make sure you always use it over 50 heat to give yourself a better cooldown. Half the amount of time, 15 seconds, over 50%, over 50 heat. and that is going to be a stun break, as well as minus 50% incoming damage and minus 50% incoming condition damage. Really good. Prime Light Beam, great ability. Charge up and fire an explosive beam of light in front of you. When activated above the heat threshold, this attack leaves behind a burning holographic field. So it leaves a burning field around there as well. Not very obvious on the ground, unfortunately. It's just kind of glowing and looks holographic, I guess. Field pulse is 10 and field duration of 10 seconds. Also, heat threshold of 50 is when that occurs, as far as I remember. Field damage 2%, number of targets 5, and it is a launch as well and is unblockable. Okay, let's see if we can line up these targets. These people are just, it's very difficult to try and test stuff. I'll be able to show you in some footage, hopefully, which I will be grabbing. That light beam does go through targets, so technically it's a pierce. I don't think it says that anywhere. It does go through, so if you fire it in a line, especially if, you know, there's downed opponents and whatnot, or there's one downed opponent and you want to try and cleave and do a big knock, that's fantastic, as well as obviously using your knock up. The AoE on this ability is ridiculous. Remember, having stability with your third ability is going to be obviously very, very strong to have, and then using your knockdown or maybe Prime Light Beam, good time to do that, or in stealth, or obviously Rune Surging as well is going to be helpful. So really, I'm not going to tell you anything else about this build. I'm going to let you just go and have fun with it. I would say there are other options. Rocket Boots is a fun option. It is probably quite viable as well, because you can get that ammo now, and the cooldown, really, you don't notice it. Like, you're not going to see 20 seconds of cooldown pretty much at all, because you have to use, you know, if you've got 2 charges and you use one, you've still got 2 seconds. So you're obviously going to have like that 18 seconds of time, and then it's still ticking down. And then if you've used 2 of them in a row, you've got 16 seconds until your next one pops up. And then you'll be in a fight. You won't be using Rocket Boots, or you'll be over on another cap anyway. And then you've got, you know, that extra blast. So not only have you got that blast, you've got your shield, and then you've got also your Rocket Boots to get away should you need to, which is fantastic. And you've got 3 good blasts to give you a good amount of burst healing, which is pretty sweet. Also does did used to do something else. It doesn't do that anymore though. Oh, it's the blast finisher. Yeah, 900 distance as well, which is pretty damn fantastic. It doesn't say it in there, but it does cure, immobilize, cripple, and chilled as well, which is really, really useful, especially against warriors at the moment, because warriors, if they cripple and interrupt you and everything else, they can cause you pain, and you're going to find out about that, and I'll talk about that in another video. But getting rid of cripple is very, very useful, and obviously any mobilized and chilled effects. So really, and with the amount that's coming out as well with druid and people that are able to immobilize you quite easily now, especially, is actually not a bad utility to take. But I have been taking as well Hard Light Arena. Hard Light Arena is amazing. Not only is it amazing just because of this, but because of the tool belt skill. Hard Light Arena gives you 3 boons, and you may be saying, oh, boons, really? But the thing is, it reapplies the boons, they tick. So Fury, Protection, and Regen, and it's 1 second, every second they reapply. So you can get them taken away, but they're going to reapply themselves. Because spell breakers can remove boons pretty easily from doing a lot of different things, like interrupting, knocking you back, knocking you down, a lot of hammer out there, as well as, you know, shield, as well as trying to people just interrupt you as well with their dagger abilities. Oh my god, it's crazy. So that's not bad, because you can place it down, so it's actually fairly viable. It does mean you're going to be situated on point, so there's a bit of a difference here as well, where there's the rifle option. A lot of people are playing rifle because you can kite around quite a lot. You know, the rocket boots help them do that a lot, whereas this with sword shield really helps me to sustain in an area with some extra damage and protection and regen. You could argue you don't need that extra damage, and protection and regen might not be enough to really help you survive that much. But I also have this, which is Prismatic Singularity. So collapse a ring of holograms to pull foes into a single point. The ring explodes when it it fully collapses, and the radius and pull distance increase while above the health threshold. As I said before, 50 is that golden mark for, you know, the first increase in terms of something changing in terms of a cooldown, in terms of damage and whatnot as well. And in this sense, heat threshold is 50, and the radius and pull increase is of 120 from 240. Yeah, that should be indeed correct. It is. Look at that. Boom. So the blast radius goes up to 240, and the radius goes up to 360, which is how I read that. And I might be not reading that properly because it's late and I'm tired. But yeah, if we jump down here, you can see, let's just see at the true distance. We'll pull those targets in. It's pretty much bang on actually where that is, that radius is, and that's actually while I'm only quite low as well. So let's go back up. I should better get this back fairly soon. Oh my god. I'll buy this time. Jesus, see, look at the range of that knockdown. Oh, it's just painful. Beautiful, right? So let's see the increased range here. Please let this happen. There you go. Is that the biggest pull in the game? Potentially. I would say they're probably going to nerf bits and pieces of this, but stability is around. People can gain it. Look at the amount of might. Look, I'm not doing anything. 25 secs that was at. All I can say is have fun. Go and try your stuff. Go and do it. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. The rest of it is fairly obvious. This is the extra tool belt skill for which is Flash Spark, which is for Spectrum Shield. It helps you survive even more, gives you light aura so you don't take as much condition damage, and also blind so you can help yourself escape. The heat threshold of 50 then gives you light aura. So again, 50, remember, get it over that magic number. If you're not using the traits that we are, or most people are using, then you want to make sure you're over halfway. With this trait enabled, it's 50%, 100% above, 50 heat, 100%, 100 heat, 150. I hope this hasn't been too long-winded. I hope this hasn't been too crazy for you. It's a lot to take in whenever we're playing new classes. If you want to see me play more Holosmith in future, make sure you go to twitch.tv/JebroUnity. Make sure as well, if you want to buy the expansion, that you buy it from the link below in my description. It really does support me in the channel. I want to keep doing this full time. With you guys' support, you really can do that. There's also a donation link if you want to. You can subscribe to me on Twitch. That's where I am the most every day, pretty much. Especially, at the moment, it's a lot of Guild Wars 2 up until the Path of Fire, and then afterwards as well, we have the Unity Gaming Organization's PvP tournaments. So if you want to come and join that, you're welcome to once a month, and it is for real life money, at least $100 in the pot each month for that. So make sure you check out all the links below. I've been Jebro. Thank you very much for watching. You're all awesome, and I'll see you next time.